So UFC on ABC4, Rozenstruik versus Almeida, also known as UFC Charlotte, did just wrap up, or it did quite a few hours ago, but today the card set at 4 AM for me, so I've actually watched the card already, flown home, and now I'm here to kind of talk about who I think that the UFC should match up, the winners of every single fight on the card next. So who they should win, who I think I would match them up with, and who I think the UFC should match them up with. And obviously in the main event, you've got a ranked opponent, you've got Jailton Almeida breaking into the top 10. You've got to go to the rankings, and if we do go to the rankings, I don't know if you guys can see them, you can. He's going to take up the number 9, number 8 spot. I was looking at Alexander Volkov, and I think Volkov probably deserves to maybe fight up or around the sort of area, because Volkov did take on a risky fight in Romanov, who was much lower ranked than him recently. And I know he called out Tuivasa, but can we please keep Tuivasa away from Almeida? We don't need that. We do not need Tuivasa versus Almeida, please no. So I've actually gone with Sergey Spivak versus Jailton Almeida. Is it an exciting fight? Not really, but could it headline a UFC Picks card, and would people complain about it? People will definitely not complain about it, and yes, it could easily headline a UFC Picks card. And I think it's a good fight, you know what I mean? Like, maybe if UFC went back to Brazil sometime soon, did a pay-per-view, you could put them on the main card or the prelims or something like that, but I just don't want to see him fight Tuivasa. Like, let's give Tuivasa someone he can stand and bang with, you know what I mean? Maybe we could do Tuivasa versus Volkov. Maybe we could do Tuivasa versus Rozenstruik. Like, these are better options. I don't want to see UFC do that to Tai, man. We don't want to see that. We don't want Tai Tuivasa to fight Almeida. The next one is Johnny Walker beat Anthony Smith. He's probably in like a title eliminator sort of situation right now. I don't think you guys can see with my overlay, so I'm just going to turn it off. And you see that Johnny Walker is now ranked number 5. And I was thinking about matching him up with Nikita Krylov, but I think Walker at this point maybe deserves someone higher ranked. And that's when you kind of get like a bit iffy, right? Like, he could do Rakic, but no one knows what he's up to. You could do Jan and Ankalaev, and maybe they're going to rematch, so maybe Krylov does actually make more sense. But I've still gone with Jan Blachowicz here. I think Jan and Ankalaev might be going for a rematch, but Jan probably wants to fight soon, you know, like, he's 40 years old now, he's not getting any younger, and he hasn't fought in about 5.5 months, give or take. He probably wants to fight soon, and maybe if Johnny Walker was offered to him and it was in 3 months, or maybe even in 2 months on somewhat short notice, I think he would take it. I think Jan needs a fight. I think Jan's really looking for a fight now. He's 40, man. He doesn't have that much time left. He's probably going to retire sometime soon, and Jan's looking for a fight. If Ankalaev doesn't work out, Jan's probably going to fight Walker. Maybe you could do Ankalaev versus Walker. Who knows? Maybe you could do Rakic versus Walker. There's a lot of options, you know. Ian Garry just beat Daniel Rodriguez. Very impressive fight for Ian Garry. He's made my job easily because he called out Neil Magny, and I actually really like this call out. The reason why I like it is I do think it's a good matchup for Ian Garry. A lot of people think that Magny would probably be able to beat him, I've seen online, but I really think Ian Garry would defeat Neil Magny. And on top of that, on top of the win over Neil Magny, on top of calling out Neil Magny would accept this. Neil Magny is not a guy that declines fights at all, you know what I mean? And I feel like I like this matchup, especially for that reason, because a lot of the time, guys call out people, but they're not actually going to accept the fight, you know? Like, it's like Ian Garry calling out, like, Gilbert Burns, for example, you know? But just wouldn't make sense. So, I like the Neil Magny call out. He's probably going to be ranked 14 or 15. And Neil Magny's not scared of fights. Neil Magny will take this. And on top of that, we just lost Davison Figueiredo versus Manel Karp. So I actually wouldn't mind Ian Garry versus Neil Magny on UFC 290. Really stack that card, put it on the prelims of that card, and really stack it and replace the Figgy Karp fight with the Ian Garry Neil Magny fight. I think that's a great idea, and it would put a lot of eyes on Ian Garry as well, because that's going to be such a big card. Carlos Ulberg defeated Iho Potieria. He kind of did what everyone said he was going to do. There was a little bit of a threat there because Iho Potieria could have rushed in and knocked him out. But Iho Potieria decided that he wanted to, like, kickbox with Carlos Ulberg. It's like, oh, well, he's going to strike with him. But the way that Iho strikes is like he rushes forward. Like, that's how he ideally strikes. And he couldn't do that against Ulberg. So Ulberg just ended up knocking him out. Well, actually, as he did rush forward, he knocked him out. But you kind of know what I mean. Iho Potieria tried to out-kickbox the much better kickboxer in Ulberg, and it just didn't work. And speaking of kickboxers, let's not give Alberg a wrestler just yet. Let's give him Dustin Jacoby. I think this is a fantastic fight. Dustin Jacoby, he's a former Glory kickboxer. You know, he fought in Glory. He actually had a pretty good run in Glory as well. Went on a really good win streak. And then come back into MMA after he kind of, I guess, like maybe retired from competitive kickboxing. And he's a really good striker. He's on a little bit of a losing streak right now. You know, he looked really bad against Murzakanov, which I thought he was really going to win. That was an embarrassing performance. But, I mean, the Khalil Roundtree fight he probably should have won. But the important part about this fight is Dustin Jacoby will probably accept it. It's an all-striking fight. These guys are not going to take each other down. If anyone does go for wrestling, it would be Jacoby. But I think for the most part, it will take place on the feet. And it'll be really good to kind of find out where Carlos Ulberg is at, especially in the striking. So I like that matchup. I like Ulberg versus Jacoby. We move down a little bit. We've got Alex Morono taking on Tim Means. And Alex Morono had a call out, and I like it too. I think it makes sense. Alex Morono, obviously a bit of a veteran in the game. I think he's even said himself that Alex Morono, like I think he's even said like he doesn't think he's ever going to be a champion, which is interesting. So I'm not too worried about trying to move him up the rankings. So I kind of just like Alex Morono versus Brian Barberena because that's who he called out. And I think Alex Morono himself said that he doesn't think he's going to be a champ. I think he said that. So he's just kind of taking fun fights. I don't know if that's true. I feel like maybe my memory could be failing me, but I think I heard something along those lines. But he called up Brian Barberena. Barberena's kind of up and down. Barberena kind of had that run where he was getting a lot of opportunities he probably didn't really deserve. But, you know, like he fought Matt Brown, and he fought Robbie Lawler, and then he fought RDA. He did take that on short notice, and I think he took Nelson on short notice as well. But on a full camp, maybe UFC 291, these guys could fight, or maybe even like the UFC 290 card's so stacked. UFC 290, UFC 290, you could put them on the early prelims. Like, Barberena's a pretty big name. He's been on pay-per-views before. I think he was on the pay-per-view against Nelson. And I think he was even on the pay-per-view against Lawler. So he's been on pay-per-views before. People know who he is. And I think him versus Morono, early prelims, UFC 290, maybe a fight night in front of a crowd around July, August, September. Or on that August pay-per-view, UFC 291, which is going to be in... at Elevation. What's the state that's at Elevation? You guys know what I mean. There's gonna be a card there, I believe. UFC 291 in the USA. Probably on the prelims. Probably. I don't think that's a main card fight. Matt Brown knocked out Court McGee. Matt Brown is 42, right? We're not gonna give him young guys. And to be fair, I have matched him up with a young guy, but I think you might understand kind of what I mean. I actually was thinking about Matt Brown versus the guy that beat this guy that I'm matching him up with, and that is Wally Alves. I was thinking Matt Brown versus Nicholas Dalby, because Nicholas Dalby's 38 years old himself, and although he does have a very pretty record, he's not really the best fighter in the world. And at this point in Matt Brown's career, I don't want to see Matt Brown fighting Brian Battle. I don't want to see Matt Brown fighting Hanat Fakhrinadov. I don't want to see Matt Brown fighting Garry. You know what I mean? Like, let's not do that. Let's not do that. Let's not waste time doing stuff like that. Let's do Matt Brown versus Wally Alves. Wally Alves isn't an old guy. He's 32, but this guy is so inconsistent. And I think if low volume Alves, I think if unmotivated Alves shows up, I think Matt Brown would beat him. You know, I think he would. And I don't really mind this matchup. And once again, I don't want to see Jeremiah Wells versus Matt Brown either. I don't want to see these young guys. I know Wells isn't young, but I don't want to see these up-and-coming guys fighting Matt Brown. Let's look after him, dude. He's 42 and he's been in the UFC for so long. So Matt Brown versus Wally Alves. I think it's a good matchup for Brown. I think it's a good matchup for Alves to get back on track as well. So it could be a good fight. Carl Williams taking on Chase Sherman. I think this opponent that I've matched him up with has a lot of hype. Well, he doesn't really have a lot of hype. He's got a pretty record, and I think we kind of need to use that to build someone else, and we're going to use that to build Carl Williams here. I think personally, I might have overrated Carl Williams a little bit, personally. I thought he was going to take down Sherman and just finish him, and it was a lot closer than it probably should have been. But I like Carl Williams versus Martin Buday. Martin Buday is not that good. He's got a 12-1 record. Like, he's got a really nice record. And it would be a shame if someone was to capitalize on the hype. I really wanted Martin Buday versus Justin Taffa, because Justin Taffa would knock out Martin Buday and kind of take that hype off beating someone with a 12-1 record. But Justin Taffa's got a fight booked against Austin Lane. So let's just do the next best thing. Let's do Carl Williams versus Martin Buday. Martin Buday is probably one of the most boring fighters on the roster, so let's not do this in front of a crowd. Maybe UFC Apex, I think, would make sense. And we can move down. So Douglas Silva Andrade beat Cody Stamann. It's been appealed, but I read something about the Carolina state where you actually can't appeal anything in the state of Carolina. I could be wrong, but I don't think he's going to win this appeal anyway. You know, I mean, Cody Stamann lost the first 2 rounds. Arguably got robbed of the first from the ref not taking a point or giving them back the position, but that has happened a lot before. Like, you see that quite often, that someone upkicks someone and then they don't get a point taken or the position back. Like, that happens all the time, especially in the clinch against the cage as well. Something will happen, they won't get the position, they won't get the point taken away. It happens all the time, so I don't think anything's going to happen. This is something that happens often. Douglas Silva Andrade, he's on I think a 1 or 2 fight win streak now. He was very highly ranked. I think Cody Stamann was like ranked like number 17 on ranking MMA, so on like the UFC rankings outside the top 15. So I've just kind of given him a top 15 opponent. I know maybe you could say he doesn't really deserve one because he did lose to Said Nurmagomedov, who I think is unranked at the moment. But, I mean, who else is going to fight Chris Gutierrez? You know, Chris Gutierrez has to fight down a little bit. He kind of got fast-tracked a little bit, and in hindsight, maybe he got fast-tracked a little bit too quickly. Personally, I did pick Gutierrez to beat Munoz. I wasn't very confident on it, but I did pick him to do it. And, yeah, I think Chris Gutierrez was just fast-tracked too fast. He's fast-tracked too fast. He needs to step back down. That step back down would be against Douglas Silva Andrade. I think that's an appropriate step back, because Silva Andrade, we're just outside the rankings. At the moment, you're getting number 14 ranked, I believe, is Chris Gutierrez at the moment. And I think it just makes sense. I think it would be a good step down in competition for Gutierrez. It would be a good reset point. Silva Andrade is older as well, so I think it makes sense. As for Mandy Bolm and Jeon Kim, I've got nothing loaded because I think that they should just both be cut. Mandy Bolm, oh man, I don't want to lose monetization. Mandy Bolm is probably the single worst fighter to ever step foot in the UFC octagon. I'll just say that. And Jeon Kim fought like an idiot and lost because she genuinely just fought like an idiot. She fought emotional. She was dumb. You could actually make an argument that the knee at the end was actually a legal knee, because I believe in the rule set, I don't know if it's a Carolina rule or just a normal rule set, the hand actually has to be supporting the body weight for it to be illegal if you get kneed in the face, but it wasn't. You know, the arms were drifted up, and it's just the fingertips that were on the ground. So you could make a very good argument that the knee that she landed wasn't actually illegal in the first place. But anyway, Bolm pulled the Aljo. She's obviously been going to Aljamain Sterling's acting lessons, and it worked out for her. She got a win, but I think she should be rewarded by getting cut from the promotion. And Jeon Kim, it's like 5 in a row now. Yeah, sorry Jeon Kim, you got to go as well. I think we just cut them both. I don't see any reason to keep them around, unless you wanted to use Mandy Bolm to build up someone else, because Bolm genuinely is terrible and she won't beat anyone in the UFC. So, be interesting. But we'll move on. Brian Battle beat Gabe Green. Very impressive performance from Battle. Interesting plan for Gabe Green. Battle missed weight, so he can't take short notice fights, unfortunately, because I was really thinking of doing Brian Battle versus Johan Lainez at UFC 289, because Johan Lainez was meant to fight Miguel Baeza. No, he wasn't. Am I an idiot? I am an idiot. Wait, what is wrong with me? I thought Miguel Baeza was booked to fight Johan Lainez for UFC 289, and it got cancelled. I don't think that is the case. Anyway, Brian Battle versus Johan Lainez is the matchup. I was thinking about it being at UFC 289, but it's a short notice fight. Battle probably won't make the weight. So I like Johan Lainez versus Brian Battle just in general. I think it makes sense. It's a striking matchup. It's a very winnable fight for both. Probably more winnable for Brian Battle, to be fair, but it's still a fun fight and would get Brian Battle kind of up the rankings a little bit. I know Johan Lainez is probably ranked lower than Brian Battle, but I think it makes sense. I think Johan Lainez as well will probably take the matchup as well. So I like it. I like the fight. Tainoa Lisboa beat Jessica Rose Clark. I think Jessica Rose Clark might be getting cut from the UFC. I think Tapology. I think Jessica Rose Clark would be a little bit delusional to think that UFC will keep her around. But the thing about Jessica Rose Clark is she's probably too popular to cut, right? Because if the UFC did cut Jessica Rose Clark has got like 500,000 Instagram followers. If someone like Bellator, who like doesn't really care, who's got like a lot of like fighters that aren't that great, picked her up, Jessica Rose Clark would bring that massive following to Bellator, and I don't know if the UFC really wants that. So they might keep her around for one more fight. They genuinely might. But I don't know if Jessica Rose Clark can even find a winnable matchup, because I thought Tainara Lisboa... I thought Jessica Rose Clark was going to beat Tainara Lisboa. I'm an idiot. I'm actually an idiot. But the thing is, with Tainara Lisboa, there's no tape on her. I couldn't really find anything. She'd never really beaten anyone that good. So Jessica Rose Clark, I don't think Jessica Rose Clark will probably ever want to fight again, unless she goes to Bellator and fights someone that she's meant to beat. But the thing about Jessica Rose Clark is, like, she looks like she's getting worse. Like, it almost looks like as she's become more famous, as she's been getting paid more, it almost just looks like she's getting worse as a fighter, which is interesting. It's like Lupita Godinez. Lupita Godinez is actively getting worse as a fighter as well, so it's interesting what's going on. But anyway, I think Tainara Lisboa should fight Hailey Cowan. Hailey Cowan lost her debut. Lisboa just won her debut, but it's actually a winnable fight for Cowan, who probably could wrestle and grapple her. It was a very close fight with Jamie Lynn Horth. If you really wanted to, you could do Jamie Lynn Horth versus Tainara Lisboa at maybe 125, because I think Lisboa has fought at 125 in the past. But I don't mind Jamie Lynn Horth versus Lisboa at 125 if she wants to go there. But if she wants to stay at 135, Tainara Lisboa versus Hailey Cowan is the fight that I kind of want to do. That was a long video. Hopefully you guys don't mind it. And I'll see you guys in the next one. It'll probably be... I think I might do something else, and then I'll do a prediction video. Like, a lot of weird things happen in the weekend that I kind of wouldn't mind covering in a video. So, maybe I'll do a different video other than just the UFC predictions. But it should be a pretty interesting weekend next weekend. It's not going to be that good of a card. It's not a good UFC fight night coming up. But I think there's going to be a lot of finishes. And I think it's just going to be one of those cards which isn't going to be a good card, but it's going to be a good card at the same time, like, for different reasons. So I'll see you guys for that one, and thank you guys so much for watching. If you made it this far, please leave a like, please subscribe, please leave a comment, and I'll see you in the next one.